It's just I'm a fervent believer of, release and let go.
Yeah.
Live and let live. And so maybe in hindsight, I should have probably opened up a little bit more about my experiences with that organization. But also, my emotional maturity, and if I could also add maybe intellectual maturity, because I do believe there's something like intellectual maturity.
Yeah,
we can all study science and mathematics and beautiful subjects and, neuroscience and all sorts of fancy things and know them very well. But if we can't blend that with a sense of maturity and a sense of being grounded, also there's a sense of civic duty, we basically won't be of any good to ourselves. So I try to minimize talking about the organization because and this I've spoken about openly before. I got to do work that I was very happy about. If I have to assess myself.
Was that when we were in the provincial legislature in Gauteng?
Well, just basically as a member, just as an ordinary member, not even an elected member or whatever, leader in the organization. I was very happy with the work that I did because I always live my values. And one of the reasons that the corporate environment became extremely difficult also for me. Yes, I did change jobs quite a lot because, that's what you do in South Africa's corporate environment. It's a racist environment and we all have to be very honest about it. The South African corporate environment is extremely racist. And its racism is hidden, right? It's hidden in all sorts of nuances. I mean, it maintains the so-called apartheid wage gap, which is also a gender wage gap, which is a racial gender wage gap. It's very blind to productivity. It's always biased and against, especially black females. And it's a very tokenistic space where, they'll put you in a soft position as a black female. And if you're too smart for your own good, I mean, I was called a cheat.
But all companies, I mean, we'll come back to this. All companies in South Africa are not owned by white people, or many of them might be maybe majority owned by white people.
Corporations are. The corporations
are.
Yeah,
but I want us to, wait. Let me lead in. I want us to talk about this. Also, I want us to talk about the role of black executives on boards of these major Some of them are executives on the board, some of them are shareholders. What role do they play? But before we get to that, let's finish the EFF side. You were telling me about your journey.
That's where I was going. Okay. Let me tell you, right? I'm very experienced discussing this, and your reaction is exactly what I normally get from people either my age or older than me, who tend to become very protective about the realities, and they tend to be men. Surprise, surprise.
No, I'm not protecting anything. I love your voice, but the thing is, I'm trying to finish your topic and then move to another because
that's where I was at.
I'm curious. This is what World Review is about. I want everything. I want your view. Don't censor yourself.
So the I was trying to make a point and I wanted to link the two.
Okay, sorry.
And I do tend to have a long thinking process, and my voice, I tend to speak a little bit slowly. Okay. But I was trying to marry the idea will come back to me. But let me stick to this one aspect, right? So when I joined the
EFF, the entity
at the time, I was driven by my own private personal belief in what I think what I thought at the time South Africa needed from a government point of view, or actually from a societal point of view, but from my limited understanding of politics, I must be honest, because once I then got into certain roles and doing work on, in various communities, predominantly with poor communities, which is also something else that I've changed my mind about. I think it's a wrong format to focus on political work on poor black communities for the simple reason that yes, of course, there are working class communities, right? So we have a lot of people in all townships and peri-urban areas and rural areas who are basically, you know, all of them are basically in the working class, whether they're unemployed or employed, but who also tend to be, majority of them tend to be in the lower income earning, clusters of the income, segments. And then, of course, like communities such as Soweto, for instance, and Atteridgeville, Mamelodi, etc., have got a very high middle class income, earning group. But I do believe that as Black people politically, especially Black people in the middle class or Black people who are tend to be, in leadership positions in whatever industries they operate in, the biggest mistake we make is thinking that our politics and influencing government policy through lawmaking is actually something that we can only do by engaging predominantly, the township specifically and the rural areas, basically the Black population. We tend to shy away. And so I was at that point, right, where my understanding of politics was really only carved from, I would imagine, the sort of ANC-centric, I would call it, way of thinking because of my upbringing. And obviously I'm not unique. Many of us.
So would you describe it as on-the-ground activism, but you need to go beyond the on-the-ground activism?
On the ground shouldn't only be from an apartheid lens.
Yeah.
Because you must remember that our apartheid and colonial history is very much our generational curse for us in this current generation, because we can't shirk it off. You can't wish it away, even if you wanted to wish it away. It's what do I call it? It's vestiges. It's lived experience.
Right.
It will last for a long time, and no thanks to certain people, it's actually living with us a long time. So I joined them at the time when I firmly believed that, look, the only way to change South Africa's, landscape of inequality and poverty and crime, is to actually, one, join a political party. I no longer was convinced about the ANC like I am not now, and like I will never be ever again. But I had the limited view that you could only make changes through politics. And so for me, it was like also a sacrifice, because I basically quit quite a cushy, job at the time. In the cell phone.
Was your departure sudden, or did you think one day when you leave, say, an abusive partner, usually you don't leave the day you think about it.
I first resigned in 2016. I first resigned in 2016.
Okay.
And this is something I do speak about openly.
Yeah.
So I'm very limited about what I say about them as an organization, because I'm a firm believer of moving on.
Right.
And I also believe that my experience may or may not be the same as someone else's experience. I believe that time basically resolves most, if not.
Are there truths about, or things that happened that were said that that you would rather not face now, but you might probably write in a memoir one day, because the truth has to come out. It always finds a way to come out.
Perhaps one day, but I definitely resigned about 4 years before my final resignation. I wrote a resignation letter and I just didn't submit it, but we held a meeting with two of the senior leaders, and to tell them that, look, I'm giving. I was still approaching my life from a very professional. I always try to be as professional as I can, and maybe just show some courtesy to people that I work with in whatever format. But at the time when I first resigned, I gave a 6-month notice, and I opened the discussion to say, look, allow me to walk away. And what I was, besides being a female, and the realities of the dangers of leading an organization like that as a female who is genuine. I can't be instructed. I'm a very, very difficult person to instruct. I can only take an instruction from someone else. I don't care whether you're a billionaire, because my father trained me in a very.
When is your birthday? Just curious.
On the 26th of August. I'm a Virgo who's on the cusp.